Chiefs 38 and the Eagles 35. 6 seconds left in Super Bowl 57 regulation. Hurts takes the snap. The Chiefs only rushing 2 on a delay. Clock is going to be out of time, and the pass is going to be underthrown. It's incomplete. It's incomplete. Everyone who claims the Chiefs Kingdom will raise a banner above the National Football League again. For the second time in 4 seasons, the Lombardi Trophy has a red and gold reflection. A big red reflection. The Chiefs are champions of Super Bowl 57.
Whoa! From a luxury suite high above State Farm Stadium, site of Super Bowl 57. It's Around the NFL. Dan Hanzus here with Gregg Rosenthal, Marc Sessler. That, of course, was Mitch Holthus, who gets the final call of our final episode of the 2022 season. A incompletion by Jalen Hurts. He tried to heave it downfield. Nobody home, nobody near it. And after the Harrison Butker chip shot that put the Chiefs ahead seconds earlier, that was enough for the Chiefs, who win 38-35. Super Bowl champions once again, Marc Sessler, and another masterclass by the great Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I thought it had shades of the way that they came back against the Niners a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl, and really mirrored in some way what they've been through during this postseason journey. And before, we went into halftime with them looking not Kansas City-like at all, and wondering if Patrick Mahomes would be healthy enough to even play in the second half after suffering what looked like a very painful re-aggravated ankle injury. And instead he comes out, and the offense, I mean, I know it's like there's these halftime adjustments and Andy Reid is doing stuff that only Andy Reid can do, but the way they responded with 3 straight touchdown drives and that closing drive where I was sitting next to you, Dan, saying the best thing you could have for Kansas City is to not even give the Eagles another chance. You didn't know they were going to do it. They did it, and they kicked the field goal, and the thing is over.
It required perfection.
Absolutely.
I mean, they had to put 38 on the board. They had to have no punts in the second half. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback I've ever seen. He would have been the best quarterback I've ever seen if they won this game or they lost this game, if they had put up 35, because I think whoever was getting the ball last year was going to win. But I think the way he did it, that he had to do it using everything he learned since that last Super Bowl, that it couldn't be overly spectacular. It had to be about decision-making. It had to be about reading the defense and getting rid of the ball quickly and mitigating that Eagles pass rush. It had to be stepping up in the big moment and making that scramble. I mean, the script writers were working overtime. He gets up from the scramble up the middle, and he's limping, and the Chiefs are about to win the Super Bowl. He can just do it all, and I think this showed that even on a night where he can't do everything he normally does, that's more than enough to put up 38 on a very good defense and go win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and we were seated behind the uprights on the Chiefs side of the field, and I was thinking that was the play that I'll always remember from this game. 2:55 to play in the fourth quarter, 1st and 10. Chiefs have the ball, tie game after Hurts is magnificent leading the Eagles down the field, and then the 2-point conversion to get it even. Mahomes scrambles 26 yards on the bad ankle, and can't you already picture it, even though we haven't seen it yet, the NFL film shot straight ahead at Mahomes chugging along almost 30 yards, setting them up for the field goal that would clinch the Super Bowl. Now, if there are any Eagles fans listening right now, and if you are here, guys, much respect, because this is a bad loss, obviously.
Or I hope you're enjoying March or April, because
Right.
I don't think you're listening to this on Super Bowl night.
Unlikely.
I don't think it's a stretch to say this is one of the more difficult losses in the history of Philadelphia sports. 10-point lead at the half, and I think probably what will be remembered as the most infamous call in the history of the city for their professional sports, the holding on James Bradbury on 3rd and 8 from the 15. And we're going to kind of get into the whole game, but I think we need to have a conversation about this play first, because it essentially ends the game for all intents and purposes. Patrick Mahomes drops back on a 3rd and 8. He's targeting J.J. Smith-Schuster. It's a pass that sails out of the back of the end zone. It looks like Kansas City's still in good shape because they're going to get set up with a very makeable field goal for Harrison Butker, although he had already missed earlier in the game. But instead, the flag comes out. I believe it was the only infraction in the whole game in terms of pass interference or defensive holding in the secondary. And immediately it felt a little bit ticky-tack. Before I get your guys' thoughts on this, there's 100 million people watching this game around the world, or at least in our country alone, and everybody's hearing Greg Olsen. And here's what Olsen said of the play when it happened.
Yeah, that's worst-case scenario. You'll see James Bradbury. They're going to say he grabs him. He's got his left hand on his back. I don't know. Mike, listen, I think on this stage, I think you let him play. Obviously, Mahomes thought he saw it. I think you let him play, finish this thing out. I don't love that call, Mike.
I mean, I think you got to see the whole thing. It seemed to me at the initial break, he grabbed the back of the jersey and pulled it. If we see that, I think that is a hold.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mike. He's trying to run a little whip route, sell the shallow cross. I know he's got that right hand. I get it. I just think in this moment, oh, man, that is a game-altering penalty.
Yeah, and I love Olsen kind of sticking to that and kind of going back at Mike a little, because to me, just exactly in that moment, the way that it looked, we've seen variations that it was not egregious. It completely changed the game. Seconds later, you've got Jarrett McKinnon doing the smart thing, which some running backs have not done that this year, and it's become a talking point.
Ahmad Bradshaw,
right?
anybody?
Nick Chubb
That
did
was
that.
a 1st and 10 play at the 11-yard line with 1:48 to go. I was kind of impressed by both teams that they had the wherewithal to let him score at the 11, and
right.
that McKinnon had the wherewithal to fall.
To go down, it sets up the chance for Mahomes to simply kneel the ball a couple times and kick that final field goal. But you're right. There's no way to look at this game and the back-and-forth nature of it, and how, honestly, the Eagles on offense were fantastic tonight. The defense did not show up the way we thought. But to have it end on that call, I'm with Greg Olsen 100%.
It was anticlimactic. It was one of the best Super Bowls we've ever seen without a satisfying ending. I think
Right.
Chiefs fans don't care how it happened, but just as a general fan, it's unsatisfying. I think what was confusing was that the hold had to have been on the initial little tug, and it wasn't crazy.
And Mahomes reacted immediately.
Right.
For the
Absolutely,
record.
yeah.
So certainly in a game where they hadn't called holding or pass interference all game, that seems like one that wouldn't be called because it wasn't like a big tug. And when he has the arm around him later, I don't think that's what was called. But the flag didn't come out until really late, until the ball hit the ground. So that part of it was confusing. Dan, you pointed out how Mahomes was pointing for the flag right away. That might have been like the most influential, effective pointing at the official ever. I don't know if that had
Although
an
the
impact.
official,
don't know if he saw him or
the
any
official
of
should
that,
have
but-
absolutely zero care of what Mahomes
Okay,
is saying.
part of what was unsatisfying, too, is that was like one of the very few plays all game the Eagles' defense actually won. That they got quick pressure on him, that Mahomes essentially just threw that up, that it was going to be an incompletion whether he made that penalty or not, and that the pressure won on that play, and that the Eagles were going to get the ball with a minute and a half to go, down 3 with a chance to win.
And that doesn't have to be one of the upsets of this entire affair, is that we spent all week talking about Philly's pass rush having the chance to completely wreck this thing. They end up with no sacks.
Oh, really? Who would have predicted that?
Well, you did. That's
We'll
true.
get to that later.
But that went against the grain when you suggested
It's a
that.
Dan Hanzus shout out.
Thank you, Paul Rudd, who, by the way, is celebrating with looks like his teenage son being interviewed by Peter Schrager just minutes ago behind us. Schragebaum rounding up all the
We got
the
confetti
chief celebrities
snow
behind
angels
us.
too, by the way.
Yeah, just to set the scene. Again, we are in the suite that originally we were told, and this one was blowing my mind. Hey guys, we're going to be taping in the suite that it's Kelly Clarkson and Tracy Morgan's suite. I'm like, Kelly Clarkson and Tracy Morgan got a suite together?
I couldn't wrap my head around that.
The hell is that about? And then when I got up here, I was like, wow, this is where Clarkson and Morgan chopped it up and talked ball. Like, actually, no, this was Stephen A. Smith's suite and some other people.
Well, there's only so
but
many
you could feel
suites.
the power in
And
here.
as big as Clarkson and Tracy Morgan are, like, they can't each have their own suite. I'm in terms of fame.
From
like,
a fame angle, you're suggesting.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, you got to share the suite.
Go ahead, do it. One of you, because I heard it all week over in Radio Row, you guys are flying so high, close to the sun on borrowed wings. Say it. We should have had the suite.
I mean, I think that's a thing for next year.
Okay. There you
I
go.
was not thinking
Lines
that.
up as a fair request.
So before we kind of get into like how the game started, just to put a bow on it, and again, there's Eagles fans, if you're listening, it's like nobody should be talking about anything else except for that hold. And I get that, because if the referee keeps the laundry in his pocket, Sessler, that means it will be
4th and 8
It'll
from
be
the 15.
4th and 8 from the 15-yard line with about 150 to, let's say, after the field goal attempt, Hurts and the Eagles go back on the field down 3 if the kick's good with timeouts. I'm not sure what their timeout situation was, but they have plenty of time to go get at least the tie. And that was taken away, and that's understandable. But it shouldn't be lost, Greggy, the overall story here, which was Patrick Mahomes late in the second quarter gets dragged down, and as they go to commercial, you see Mahomes on the bench on the sideline. And at this point, it feels like the game's getting away from the Chiefs, and he looks like he's in agony on the bench. And you're thinking to yourself, as the Eagles take the field with a chance to potentially go up 14 going into the break, this game might be over potentially. And who knows if Chad Henne is even involved. And instead, Mahomes, of course, comes back out in the third quarter, and they score 4 straight possessions to steal the Super Bowl. I mean, it was another remarkable effort by, a guy that I'm kind of with you, Greg. I think Mahomes is the best guy I've ever seen at this point. This is I know you didn't like the legacy stuff leading into these games, but I thought this is the type of game that we will remember with Mahomes. That was part of my prediction leading into this game, and we will remember Mahomes and what he did tonight forever.
Right. There's no question that this enhances everything you think about Patrick Mahomes. To have to win in a different way, to have to battle through the injury, to make just all the right decisions in the second half, and quarterback is a decision-making position. Like, he had such little margin for error. It was 13 for 14, only 89 yards, but every possession ended perfectly. Touchdown, 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 and then they could have scored a touchdown at the end, but instead they win the Super Bowl on a field goal, and then he has 2 for 33 rushing yards. That's his second half numbers. The only incompletion he had in the second half was on the merry-go-round play where Andy Reid was absolutely feeling himself. It felt like an avalanche was coming down on the Eagles at that point, and he's like, all right, let's break out the merry-go-round and really make Sirianni cry over on the other sideline.
I mean, they had the ball for 8 minutes in the first half. I mean,
Right.
to come out and I think they're such a mentally steely team where, that didn't seem to affect him at all. And it's the same thing Mahomes did against the Bengals. It's like, we need you to do something heroic on a bum ankle, scramble the game in that one. It happened again tonight.
In the play, to be clear, it is a questionable call. It was a bad call. But I think you're right, Dan. If it's not your team, you don't want to spend the whole time. So much else happened in this game, and that absolutely changed the game. But the fact that the Eagles had allowed it to get to that point where the Chiefs are in the red zone with under 2 minutes left, they were not in a good position there, and they got on the bad end of it.
You're right. And before the big Mahomes scramble, the Eagles had a 3rd and 1, and if they can get off the field, maybe everything is different, but they give up the first down, the drive continues, and then it ends the way it does. Let's talk about the beginning of the game here, because it was exactly what everyone imagined, and quite frankly, I think everybody hoped. That just was looking forward to a great shootout, because the Eagles, Mark, more than almost any team you can ever remember, they always got out of the gates fast, and they do it again. They get the ball to start the game, they win the coin toss, and they go 75 yards. And did they win the coin toss, or did they?
No, the Chiefs won the coin toss
and deferred.
Chose to defer, which that's the typical decision. But against the Eagles, feels a little dangerous. Of course, Andy Reid now looks at it. They didn't manage the end of the first half well, but he looks at the way the second half started, and he said, I made a good decision.
Right. So, and what happens, Mark? Jalen Hurts leads this offense right down the field, 11 plays, 75 yards, capped by a 1-yard run by Hurts, who, by the way, was unbelievable in this game. Nails. He finished with 4 total touchdowns.
Yeah, I think that Hurts right away, you had a feeling like the Eagles offense, they're on one right here. Hurts is running the ball really well. And A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, right away there were big plays downfield. And, the Chiefs came back and answered, but it was like you knew you were going to get a Philly game where they're going to be hard to stop.
He was so cool in this game, Jalen Hurts. I just love him. I love him as a player. I love that he stepped up in this game, and after being a little scattershot to start that 49ers game, it's the Super Bowl, and he had great pass protection, but he was just money. Like, everything was on point, and he's running the ball, and we take it for granted that, like, every short yardage situation is just an obvious Eagles touchdown or first down. But, like, that's because of Jalen Hurts. It's such a weapon.
I think also that that has such an impact on the defense you're playing. But the Eagles did not run the ball very well early on in this game. They finished with only 115 yards, and he had 70 of them.
So that the Chiefs get the ball back, and this is when it was like, okay, we're going to have some fun. The Chiefs go 6 plays, 75 yards, capped by this play to the greatest tight end of all time.
Oh, please.
7:14 to go, first quarter, Super Bowl 57.
It's debatable, Greggy.
No.
Floats a pass near side. Kelsey over the shoulder. He's got the catch. He's got the touchdown. Kansas City, a beautifully thrown ball as Mahomes to Kelsey, 18 yards officially, and the 14th time that Patrick Mahomes has found Travis Kelsey for a postseason touchdown, second in National Football League history.
And it was capped with a touchdown dance that I would put, Greggy, an NC-17 rating on the Kelsey dance in front of like 150 million people.
Right. Like, my 11-year-old daughter is watching this game. Like, she became a woman tonight. And I don't like this.
No, I don't like thinking about that. But that was tit for tat there. But then the Eagles keep coming because Jalen Hurts drops back to pass, and yes, from our vantage point, I didn't think this was a beautiful ball by Hurts, but you have a beautiful wide receiver who makes a great adjustment, and this happens.
Hurts in the gun. Hurts this time fakes. He's back. He's looking deep. He wants A.J. Brown, and it's caught for a touchdown. A.J.
Even Maryland's a little bit like, wait, what?
Double coverage, it doesn't matter. He throws the ball into an area where A.J. Brown can make the adjustment, and he's jockeying around, and he makes that proper adjustment to the football for a touchdown. He runs through contact so well.
45 yards, Mike Quick. What a great play.
I think that was the first play of the second quarter, and Gravedigger, bring you in on this one, buddy. Just as a A.J. Brown guy, you followed his whole career. It's incredible what a difference he made for this team all season, and you saw it again and again tonight that he was, to me, the best wide receiver on the field.
And that's what he does. He's elite ball tracking ability and the hands to just go pluck the ball out of the air and make those tough catches. There was a couple plays in this game, I don't know if you guys saw, he was like streaking wide open down the field, and Hurts like under pressure immediately, couldn't get it to him, but like, what could have been on some of those?
He got upset in the second half when he was not getting the ball. He ended up catching a big slant in another pass on that game-tying touchdown. But you're right, he was getting upset. How does it feel, though, for you, Gravedigger? And we've been through a journey since this A.J. Brown trade happened, live on air.
Not a pleasant one.
And you went on your Instagram live.
Immediately.
ATN Instagram.
Oh, okay, even better. More followers. To be cutting a highlight of A.J. Brown, are you kind of satisfied that ultimately he did not win in this game?
No, I was rooting for him. I was rooting for the Eagles.
Okay.
I wanted A.J. to get that ring because I just kind of think, it would come full circle with Titans Twitter.
That would teach the Titans a lesson.
Honestly,
in the front
yes.
office,
I mean, John Robinson got fired, and
right. I don't know
95% of that is because of trading A.J. Brown, in my opinion. So
that was a bad ball by Hurts, relatively. Just kind of threw it up there, and Brown ended up making a good play. But 2 or 3 of his best throws of the game, it didn't end up being completions. There was a Devontae Smith one that was overturned. There was a Quez Watkins one that I don't know if we will get to it, but it was on the field goal drive at the end of the second quarter. That was a total drop and would have had them at 1st and goal with enough time to score a touchdown. He had some of his prettiest throws of the year in the Super Bowl, so I feel like it all came out in the wash.
I mean, I thought that Devontae Smith, I thought that was a catch. That some of the stuff tonight, like that's a call that, like that, top of the Eagles call at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That catch right there would have changed it. I mean, they went on to score a field goal on that drive, but that was a game changer.
So there were a couple of points, and this is why, again, Eagles fans are going to have to live with this. One of the downsides of having, a great run, a sustained run, as this organization is now on, as they just nearly won their second Super Bowl in half a decade, is that sometimes when you get this high, the losses sting even more, and then you start doing a post-mortem, you're like, man, we had the game. I think they had, to me, the game close to being in control multiple times. And the first time I thought that to be the case was they're up 14-7 after that touchdown by Brown. The Chiefs go 3 and out then, and the Eagles get the ball back, and you're thinking to yourself, man, they look awesome right now, Philadelphia. The Chiefs are on their heels a little bit, and Jalen Hurts is a 3rd and inches. There's a false start, pushes him back. So you go from, what are we calling it? I keep forgetting. The hiney.
The double cheek. The double cheek.
I mean, they didn't even need to push his cheek.
QB cheek.
QB cheek. Thank you very much.
Like, he was just doing it.
But that then backs them up, the penalty, so they have to run a different play, and disaster strikes.
Spread set. Hurts by himself in the backfield. Threat to run and throw. Crouches down. He wants to run it. Now the ball's out. He kicks the ball. It's picked up by Kansas City. They're going to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown! Kansas City! A defensive score by Nick Bolton. Hurts got hit and kicked the ball. Picked up by Bolton. And the Chiefs defense gets an incredible touchdown at 9:39 to go, second quarter.
Yeah, that was Isaac Samalo who had the false start, the right guard. So it had a trickle-down effect. Nick Bolton, by the way, had another touchdown to score.
Yeah.
I even saw him on the sideline. He tossed the ball to, like, the equipment manager. He's like, oh, I'm about to win Super Bowl MVP. And then they're like, actually, no, it was an incomplete pass. It was the right call. But anyway, that I felt like, and I might have even said this leading into the game, like, the Chiefs to win that game, they needed, whether it was a special teams play or a big defense, they got both.
They did.
And think about that.
Yeah.
That they got 2 massive plays, not from the Mahomes side of things.
It was the difference.
And
The
won by a
offenses
field
were
goal.
pretty close. It was the difference.
It was. I mean, they had, like 89 yards of offense in the first half. I mean, Hurts, you take away that one mistake. In that first half, he was 17 for 22 for 183 yards with a touchdown through the air with 63 yards rushing. I mean, it was that one little lone error. The other thing I would point out where I thought that maybe the Chiefs were starting to slip away a little bit, you go back when it was 7-7, and they had a 4th and 3 opportunity, and instead of going for it where the Eagles are being so aggressive on 4th down, we know they're going to do this with Nick Sirianni, they go for a Harrison Butker field goal, and he misses it. And
Right.
it's like the Chiefs, you're going to have to be as aggressive as Philly, and it started to look like at times, and these were a couple examples where it just might slip away from them if they can't get on track on offense.
No, there were, I think both these teams are very good at the small things in general. Tonight there was a couple of slip-ups. The Chiefs clearly were better here on special teams. They got the big play there. They got the big defensive touchdown. Sirianni got his team extra points by going for it. I mean, they went for it on a 4th and 5 where they knew they were going to run it twice. They go 3rd and 5, and they pick up the 4th and 5, and they get a touchdown out of that. So you're absolutely right. But that Bolton play, I mean, he had a monster game, and him, Willie Gay, and Leo Chanel, their rookie linebacker, and they were on the field a lot, all 3 linebackers, which is pretty rare. All had 5 defensive stops, which is like a successful play near the line of scrimmage, which is one of the best for any linebacker units that they've had in like 6 years. So those guys were forcing a lot of 2nd and 9s, 3rd and longs. The Eagles actually picked a lot of them up, but it still led to like a really good game of defending the run, except for when Hurts had the ball.
And to your point, so per Next Gen Stats, the Eagles generated 0 yards after catch over expected.
Wow.
So that means they're making catches, but they're being put on the ground right away.
Let's take a break right here, and then we'll continue on. All right. So, again, I feel bad for Jalen Hurts because we heard it, and there was even reports entering Sunday. Again, this guy is not physically right. There's the joint that's right near his Adam's apple, the ligament strain. It's causing him pain every time he throws the ball. And he ran without any fear in this game. He threw the ball very well. He set the NFL record for rushing yards in the Super Bowl. And time in this game, when they needed to get the momentum back, he was there to lead the offense. So after that crushing turnover, which, yes, he's the one who put it on the ground, these things happen, they go right down the field again, Greggy, and he scores his 3rd touchdown in the first half. Just as had been the case all season, they were kind of unstoppable in the red zone when he had the ball in his hands.
His ability to just run over guys is like what makes him different. And not to get too far on a tangent, but why not?
Sure.
Like we talked before the game about this is the first matchup of 2 black quarterbacks, in the Super Bowl, and they were doing it in such different ways here. And Jalen Hurts obviously had some great downfield throws today. He made great decisions. But he also is like Cam Newton running the ball. And that's like what is so exciting and fun to watch. we said that like this type of offense would never work at the NFL level, or coaches used to say that forever. He ends up with 15 for 70, and so many of those were short yardage runs where on one of them I can remember where I think it was Chris Jones, the defensive tackle, had him stopped, and it didn't matter. He just decided to run him over. You had the touchdown or the 2-point conversion late in the game where he did it too. He had 10 rushing first downs in this game, which I got to imagine is like one of the highest by a quarterback, like in any game, much less the Super Bowl.
And some of those, I mean, there are plays where you could point to and say it was Jason Kelce just absolutely bullied the defensive line and opened holes for Hurts, and they work so well together.
Yeah, so you have this game now, once again, at this point as we get closer to the halftime. It's kind of remarkable because you're thinking after the Bolton touchdown, and then the Eagles go on a long drive. That drive that ended with the score was 12 plays, 75 yards, took almost half the quarter off the clock. And then you're thinking they get the ball back, the Chiefs, with 2 minutes and 20 seconds to play in the first half. And Kansas City had run 15 total plays to that point. Mahomes was not on the field for 23 real-time minutes by the time he got the ball back. And then disaster strikes for Kansas City because you knew they had the opportunity because it was like they can score here, go into half, get the ball back. But instead, Mahomes unfurls what I thought was a pretty nice deep ball that MVS gets turned around on, falls incomplete, and then you have what could have been a crushing moment for Kansas City. Mahomes gets dragged down out of bounds by Reddick, and then on the next play, on a 3rd and long scramble, gets dragged down. The ankle clearly hurt, as we said at the top of the show. Chiefs had to punt the ball away, and now Mahomes is on the sideline looking like he might not play anymore.
The one thing, though, I thought that there was a ray of hope for Chiefs fans was that they showed Mahomes, it was in clear agony on the side of the field. And the first thing that we saw on the television replay, that you see Mahomes put his head down on it was Rick Burkholder, their trainer, and just it's like that maybe Mahomes knows he's not coming back in. You got Henny warming up, but then 5 minutes later, because his body is simply apparently not of the earth form, like you see him walking off to the locker room with the rest of the team, like with no limp. And then he came out and absolutely mortified the Eagles in the second half. So, this body is strange.
But that felt like such a key moment. You're right, Dan. Like the end of these halves and the way it was going for the Chiefs to be down 7, and you're like, okay, what they got to do here is score, but also not spend too much, not score too quickly. Let's say have a quick field goal drive and give the Eagles a chance. Instead, they go 3 and out. One of the few times you get pressure on Mahomes, you give the Eagles all this time. They get the 3. That's when the Devontae Smith overturned catch happened, and that was crucial. That was a minute left in the game, a minute left, rather, in the half. They would have had the ball at the Kansas City 13. Instead, they have that A.J. Brown great catch. I mean, it's amazing. He led the league in slants this year, but he's the only guy that big that can take a slant and stop on a dime and then pivot the other way and get out of bounds.
It's crazy. And I don't know how the turf wasn't in perfect condition. Maybe it had. I wouldn't be surprised if we found out it was because they had the roof open here, but the turf was very slick. A.J. Brown was the only guy that seemed to have complete control of his body at all times. That 22-yard gain set him up. 1st and 10 at the 19, but what Greg's saying there is like after they overturned the Devonta Smith catch, which was very suspect, obviously, and Eagles fans are not going to be happy about that one either. That might be the number 2 most annoying call in Eagles sports history. It kind of took them out of the running to have a real chance at scoring a touchdown. They do kick the field goal. They go into the half up 10 points. And it does feel, though, Mark, at that point, as they're getting the stage set up for Rihanna. Let's have a little Rihanna chat in a couple minutes.
Sure.
That the Eagles just seem to be in control, especially with Mahomes hurt. But, again, it was Mahomes, so you weren't sure it was over. But it felt like it could be.
I thought that would be touchdown turning into a field goal, and the one mistake by Jalen Hurts, and the fact that you're dealing with Mahomes, and we've seen Mahomes do this so many times, and like every time they ask Travis Kelce, why are you so good? He'll just say, because I have Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and it's like there was no way to count them out. There were these moments, these inflection points where it felt like the Eagles could suddenly turn this into a not a romp, but a thing that would be too tough for Kansas City to get back in. And I thought that final few minutes of that first half was just the ray of hope that Kansas City needed. And then, you saw him marching to the locker room, not in pain. It's like there's no way he's not playing the second half.
Can you help the audience just so the difference between an inflection point and a flash point? Go ahead.
I think the flash point is the name of a very successful segment that we do. That's
successful.
Not the case with inflection point.
I mean, if it was so successful, wouldn't we be running it back a little more?
Well, you
know,
constantly sort of block.
He never
Greg,
understood.
We'll deal with that later.
But it's okay.
It was 45 plays to 20, by the way, at halftime for the Eagles. I mean, it was.
They were in total control.
It was on a platter for them, and we'll get back to the running game thing. But that, to me, that was the difference in this game that I kept honking about. The Eagles were going to be able to run the ball, and you had 45 plays to 20, and you weren't getting jack out of your running backs in the first half, and you didn't get jack out of your running backs in the second half. The Chiefs won the game because they had the better running game, which that was the one stunning part of this game for me.
I thought the most stunning athletic achievement of the night, though, was Rihanna. Turns out she's pregnant, and she's on like a platform like 80 feet above the field.
I was getting the heebie-jeebies.
Which I'm assuming the doctor probably recommended not to go 100 feet in the air while pregnant. And that wasn't even the greatest feat by Rihanna, which I thought was a really good halftime show. I remember in the old days, I used to cover halftime shows on the website. Mm-hmm. It was like, and you'd predict the set list. And it was always like, okay, it's 13 minutes. So you got to figure out, okay, what are the number one hits they have? What's like the new single they have out? What's another fan favorite? Like who's a guest that will come out? But you got like a 4 or 5 song prediction. Rihanna goes out there and performs 12 songs in 13 minutes. It's a whole new world now in these halftime shows. And
holy cow!
And the set list. I know, Greg, you liked how she started it.
I mean, to start with, bitch better have my money. Give me a break. That is just like, I am king, queen, shit. I'm reigning
Calm down,
above
Greg.
you. I am pregnant, and I don't give an F. I'm starting with
Also,
bitch better have my
money. A little
money.
ironic, too, because famously halftime acts do not get paid. So if she goes looking for money from Roger, it might be an issue, but that's something they're probably sorting out as we speak.
I think she's doing fine.
I think she is.
The Fenty sweatshirts and coats are on sale all around here. So.
I thought she closed it. She closed it so well with Diamond too. I think that was just a
great
perfect
close.
way to end it.
I thought the thing that was the flex moment for Rihanna is, first of all, that she would even sniff a Kanye song, given everything with Kanye. By doing all the lights and then going into Run This Town, which is off the Jay-Z album from like 2009, they aren't her songs, but she kind of was like, hey, these are my songs. Those songs were the hook that I brought to it. I thought it was great. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. When you saw the baby bump, that was like, oh, that's pretty wild that she did it. And I think she predicted on Nate Burleson's podcast, which people could check out later this week. Or right now, actually, wherever you get your podcast.
We'll be in our feed later this week.
She predicted a special guest during halftime. Turned out to be a fetus, so that's cool.
Yeah, and I think if you're that unborn human, you're wondering
well done.
What the Earth
landing the plane there.
What is the Earth about? If you're that unborn baby, you're wondering what you're about to encounter.
Well, the flex too that she had 12 hits that that everyone knew the words, which is that's tough to do.
I really enjoyed it. It was good. But so then, I have a bad hamburger. So I had that, and then I went and got my seat, and it was interesting because I think we talked about it, Marky. This felt like the game here coming out of the half. I think there was some staggering stat. I wish I had it in front of me right now, but teams that had a double-digit lead after halftime.
It was 26-1.
26-1. The Patriots come back against the Falcons. Now it's 26-2.
So when you factor in that, the history of this, the way that first half played out, that you could even look at it. If that Nick Bolton touchdown doesn't happen, this game might already be out of reach. But it was still close enough, Mark, where if Pat Mahomes can lead them right down the field in the third quarter, they might be in pretty good shape, and that's exactly what they do. They go straight down the field, they score the touchdown, get it back to within 3, and they got the game calmed down. That was another inflection point.
Yeah, 10-play, 75-yard drive, which included incredible Mahomes 14-year-old scramble, that throw to Kelsey. They started to get, like Isaiah Pacheco's getting back into the game there. Sky Moore starts to play a role. All these guys that were just utility guys are starting to become part of the offense, and I thought that absolutely set the tone for them.
Right. It wasn't like big plays for this Chiefs team, which is impressive in its own way. They start that drive with 3 straight runs. And to me, we talk about like Mahomes maturing. How about Andy Reid? For Eagles fans to see Andy Reid and his team pull off a comeback in the second half of the Super Bowl, by sticking to the run. In the first half, I think they only had 7 runs by their backs, but they were averaging 7+ yards per carry. In the second half, they more than doubled that in terms of carries in the middle of a comeback. Like, it was very balanced run and pass, and it was working, and that was smart. They kind of didn't fall into the Eagles' trap of just throwing every down, and they got this offensive line that they built overnight, essentially, to make up for what happened in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and it really came through tonight because Pacheco had holes, Jerick McKinnon made a couple plays, and yeah, Pacheco, my guy,
We'll get to
later, running through some arm tackles.
I think some kids are getting braces and going to Disneyland because
based off of this.
Greggy did something very good for
one thing, Greg, you're right about that, but the first half was a total anomaly for the Chiefs. They hadn't had first half all year where they had less than 27 plays.
Right,
they had only 20 plays in the first half.
Fair enough.
So.
They didn't have many plays, but I like that they were down 10 and he just kind of didn't panic, did what was working.
And maybe I think, like, now looking back at the game, like the red herring with all this was, yeah, the Chiefs didn't really do anything in the first half, but it wasn't like the Philadelphia defense had solved the Chiefs. It was just the game flow was so out of whack with the Eagles in the time of possession. And guess what? After that touchdown that gets them back within 3, the Eagles do it again. They say, we're going to take the ball. They get fortunate on the second Bolton TD being overturned on review. Was ruled Miles Sanders actually didn't have possession. Therefore, it was not another return touchdown. And then Hurts hits, I think, his best throw of the day. It was a beautiful 3rd and 14 to Goddard. Casey challenges it. It's ruled it is a catch. The drive continues. There was a third down play. The last third down play of the drive was the 60th play by the Eagles. The Chiefs had run 30 plays by that point, so they were doubling up late in the third quarter. However, Casey got the stop on defense. It was a 17-play drive. That is the longest drive in NFL history by plays. But it only resulted
in the Super Bowl, right?
In the Super Bowl history. But it only resulted in 3 points. And, Greggy, bad news, because now you're up 6, and Mahomes, he's starting to warm up. And a game that felt like one's team was in total control, running double the amount of plays, all of a sudden Pat Mahomes is on the field with a chance to take the lead.
I guess you have to get used to defense now. Like, great offenses are going to beat great defenses for the most part. We just saw the Chiefs put up 38. I did feel like on that field goal drive, everything was hard. And it started to be like that. Sanders couldn't get anything going, and Hurts had to have a couple really incredible completions. Like, he hit 2 or 3 throws rolling to his left in this game that were very difficult.
So
and the Chiefs weren't getting stops necessarily. They did eventually on that drive. But they were making life a little harder for the Eagles in the second half than the vice versa.
Let's take a break right here, and then we'll continue on. All right, so that's exactly what happens. The Chiefs go right down the field, and this is, Greggy, the point of the game where it felt like Andy Reid, play caller, Eric Bieniemy, and probably his last game with the Chiefs potentially here. They have back-to-back touchdown drives in which they're near the goal line, and the player that catches the ball is all alone. And let's listen to Kadarius Toney, who, by the way, we talked all year about Kadarius Toney, like when he's healthy, what a difference he makes. And what a difference he made in this game.
Chiefs have not led in this game. They trail 27-21. They're going to throw a quick pass to Toney. He's got it on the edge. He will walk into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City. Kadarius Toney on a pick route to the near side. Couldn't be more wide open. A 5-yard touchdown pass from Mahomes, and now Butker can give the Chiefs the first lead of the game.
Yeah, and like Butker just sneaks it inside the upright, but Greg Olsen on the telecast, Mark, had pointed out that the way that play was schemed up, it had the defense thinking this thing was going in a totally different direction, and when Toney makes that move with his athleticism, all of a sudden there's nobody on that side of the field with him.
It was masterful work by Andy Reid and execution, because when you watch it again, it looks like Toney, without any question, is going to the other side of the field. He comes back, he leaves, as Darius Slay, I believe, absolutely in the dust, and he's wide open. And this, again, it's one of 2 drives that end with a Chiefs receiver absolutely alone. I mean, this is Andy Reid stuff right here. This is Patrick Mahomes stuff.
And it's part of the reason why the calls are upsetting. Wasting a performance like Jalen Hurts like that is upsetting, but like make it hard, Eagles defense. This was easy. And before that, it's like, Schuster for 8 on 2nd and 7 where he's just wide open immediately. Then it's Pacheco for 9. Then it's Pacheco for 11. Then it's Schuster again up the middle for 14. It was just, they're cranking through. And that route by Tony, everyone, that is a great play call. He probably didn't need to run as amazing a route as he did. But watching that thing live and on tape here, it's like, the way he moves is just different than other people. There's a reason he was so open. Like, he sold the hell out of that. And people that killed him for his route running coming out in college, he's still like a special athlete and can do some special things.
And he did, because then the Kansas City defense gets a 3-and-out. They didn't get many of those in this game, but they got one at a key point, now up 1. And the Eagles punt, and the punt's not a very good one. And then there is that man again making one of the biggest plays in Chiefs Super Bowl history.
And a 3-and-out for the Eagles, their first of the game. At 10:33 to go in the game, Sipas will punt. End over end, shorter punt. And Tony will take it low at the 35. Now cuts back to the right. He's got a wall set. If he can get to the edge, they can either block the punter. They do. Tony's at the 40, up the sideline. At the 30, he's at the 20. Tony with the block trying to stay in play. He's down to the 5-yard line. Tony ran out of gas on a 65-yard punt return. And the Chiefs lead 28-27. They'll have first down and goal to go at the Eagles' 5-yard line with 10:11 to go in the game.
Yeah, and watching it where we were, again, from the end zone view, you see, I think you were upstairs, Greg, doing some stuff with Talk Sport in the UK, and we were watching Mark, that play develop. You see, once he turns and goes across, all of a sudden there are 8 red jerseys and not a lot of green, and it's kind of stunning, quite frankly, that he didn't score, but they did score a touchdown on another brilliantly schemed up play to Sky Moore, who picks a very nice time to score the first touchdown of his pro career.
And he was as wide open as Kadarius Toney was on the previous drive. And I think that, you look at the way that these teams both were built, and I think they have they go after players they want that fit the system, and the trade for, they essentially to go out and get the trade for Kadarius Toney, we waited for this game. We talked about it, I think, 4 preview shows in a row. He's going to make this difference, and today he absolutely did. At the most critical time, touchdown followed by that punt return, sea change for Kansas
City. Remember,
City.
he left early in the AFC title game with a lower body injury, and you didn't know what version you were going to get. Late in the first half, it had been noted that he had played 3 snaps, so he had a limited workload. Obviously, he made the most of it. And, Greg, I just want to point out, and yes, I got the prop right with the sacks, which we're going to get to later. But, that was a 3rd down play. The Eagles' defense, for all the heroism all season long, they had chances where they could really make a big stop. Didn't have to necessarily be a sack, but a pressure that leads to a throwaway where somebody steps up. And you could talk about the holding call late in the game. You could point to a couple other things where you feel like you were wronged. They didn't make enough plays on defense.
And they weren't even that close to making any. When Chauncey Gardner-Johnson had that big stick on the last drive, you're like, the defense can make a play. In the holding call came on a play where, you finally got pressure, but that was very rare. It was the lowest pressure rate the Eagles have had in their last 9 games. But the Toney play kind of did set it up. And even though he did run out of gas, that was maybe a conditioning thing, he did show that amazing short area explosion to change direction and set it all up. And you're right, watching from upstairs, I was higher up. It is one of those things that you're like,
that's how upstairs works.
I'm just saying, at midfield, and you're like, does he see what's going on over there? Because if he just goes over there, it's got to be wide open. And I don't know if he saw it all, but he got it done.
I'm telling you. Remember, I was telling you about the width of the Chiefs' offense when their formations in general. That it's been
width talk.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
I think
that formations.
We didn't talk a lot about the Chiefs' offensive line going into this, and it was just like the Eagles dominate everyone. And I think this was a little bit different. They had the antidote.
Great width. They gave up a 3rd-round compensatory pick, the Chiefs, and a 6th-round pick for Kadarius Toney, who they have under control for at least 2 more years, plus a 5th-year option. Brett Veach.
Stay healthy, kid.
One of the most regrettable, things I ever did on this podcast was give Brett Veach a voice, which
really
demeaned him
demeaning.
years ago.
I mean, think about this.
And now he's a 2-time Super Bowl champ. and I'm a bozo.
And if you're an Eagles fan, you're doubly annoyed that the Giants gave
Very big of you.
Tony to the Chiefs for essentially nothing.
Ooh, good call. Little Giants
Me and
revenge.
all
I
my
like
friends
that
are
angle. I like that.
Don't beat yourself up too much, Greg.
I'm just trying to interview Jessica. So Jessica's here in the booth, and it's like we know, Jason Kleinman's not going to be like that entertained by us. He's sick of us. Graver will give us some pop.
Get on the bus.
But Jessica's just sitting here, kind of like sometimes she's interested, sometimes she's not. I feel like we got to make her laugh like it's a live audience or
She's been
something.
taking some professional photos
Start
of
doing
the
a little
of
like
the set.
waka waka,
Jessica's like, I don't even like football, and I've been in this f***ing building for 10 hours. Now we go to a point where it goes from Eagles in total control to all of a sudden the Chiefs are back in the game, and now the Chiefs are up by 8. And there was
so fast.
There was a thought in the area where we were sitting. It was like, should Andy Reid go for 2 after that second touchdown, make it a 2-score game, which would have been, probably smart, to be honest with you, because if you go for the 2 and you miss it, it's 7, and maybe Sirianni gets into his bag and goes for 2 and to beat you by 1. But I think you left yourself vulnerable, and exactly what happens. Again, because the Eagles, and I can't say this enough, and credit to Shane Steichen, who's about to be a head coach, it sounds like. He's going to get the job in Indianapolis that we're hearing.
We're going to do an emergency podcast on Monday about that, right?
Sure. And Hurts, who would have been the MVP going away if this thing went just a little bit of a different way, they go right down the field now with their backs against the wall. They go 8 plays, 75 yards. They get the score, but you still needed 2. But you had Jalen Hurts, who is Cam Newton, reincarnated. He would not be denied at the goal line.
They sneak, and they're in for the touchdown.
Oh, they're going to keep their offense on the field here. They want 2.
They have to go for 2. They're down 35-33.
I mean,
Hurts.
who was that?
In the gun. A.J. Brown out to the far side. Hurts is going to run. He rolls, and he is in for the touchdown, and we're tied. He takes it in for 2, and the Eagles have tied the Chiefs.
And now Mark is getting hot in the pants. Now Mark got quiet because Mark was rooting hard for the Eagles, and he saw it slipping away. After the 2-point conversion, you didn't really react much, but I also, on the other side of Sessler, he's thinking, I pick every game to go to overtime. And now it's 35-35. I got an overtime Super Bowl.
The heat coming from the pants.
I was thinking that, and I thought that was a great
emanating from the crotch region.
Exactly, I guess. That was a response by the Eagles because there was a 3rd and 4 money throw to A.J. Brown, the 46 yards to Devontae Smith. Those guys combined for 196 yards on this. And it's like that would have been a point where you could break the Eagles, and they totally came back and said, you're not doing that right now. But I was not overconfident, Dan, because with 5+ minutes to go, we have this Chiefs offense. And I said to you, what Kansas City does right here, here's how you do it. You just don't even give the ball back to the Eagles. And it's like, can they do that? And then it proceeded as it did.
Right. That, to me, and obviously I was rooting for the Eagles. I was hoping that prediction I had at the beginning of the season. I came
so
close.
Very close.
Didn't happen.
For those that may not be aware.
It's hard to hate on Mahomes. I was enjoying the game, but at that point, when he runs him over to make it 35-35, and it's why maybe we're just slightly disappointed by the anticlimactic ending. That felt like, wow, this game has had everything. Mm-hmm. This game has been incredible. Because Hurts, he's still a young quarterback, and they had I think it was a 2nd and 11 on that play, and they were down 8 at that point, and it started to feel like it was slipping away. And you're right, a couple of money throws to A.J. Brown, then the deep one, and just him just being a boss on the goal line. It just felt like it was one of the best games we had ever seen at that point.
And, Greg, do you want to use this time to express your internal sorrow? You came so close to becoming one of the most famous pundits in America. If you would have nailed that Super Bowl pick from August, including MVP and everything else.
Everyone was talking about it.
And instead, you're here talking about what might have been.
Right. I mean, I probably wouldn't be here. It would have changed the trajectory of my career so quickly that I would be on the field. Pete Schrager would be
with us
interviewing me.
Oh, I see.
And I would be doing the Today Show. I'd be going to Disneyland, and just didn't happen.
Sorry, dude.
I'm loyal to football.
But it's all right. You still came really close and showed that you had a good vision for the overall picture of the league. So
thanks, buddy.
You got it. So that's what happens then. So I wanted the Chiefs to win. I picked the Chiefs. I loved watching Mahomes all season like you guys, and I like the history of it, the idea now. I had texted my dad and cousin, Big Dog, who were sitting in the end zone where I texted them about half an hour earlier, said this game's going to end with Mahomes coming right at you to win the Super Bowl. And this is where it gets well, let's start with the best part of the drive, okay? The best part of the drive is, as we said at the top of the show, it is the NFL Films moment. I cannot wait. I wish John Facendo was still with us to narrate it, but they'll still find somebody with good gravitas, perhaps our friend on the when they do the football, what do they do at the America's Game?
Yes.
And they'll get Rudd to do it because he's a big Chiefs fan, and he'll do it with the necessary gravitas. He's a friend of mine. Here was the great scramble by Mahomes. Just picture it slow motion with the music swelling underneath.
Pacheco's the running back. Tony comes in motion. Here comes pressure to the outside. As Mahomes steps up, he's going to scramble. He's at the 40, bad ankle, 30, bad ankle, 20. Tackled from behind down to the Eagle 18-yard line, a 25-yard scramble. What bad ankle? He is limping back to the huddle. Don't tell me, don't underestimate how tough Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah, and it was 26 yards, and at that point, Mark, you knew it felt like inevitable that the Chiefs are going to win or score points, and then it just became, will the Eagles be able to get the ball back? Of course, that's when things start to get a little bit more complicated when talking about, I guess, the legacy of this game, because they get to third down, and that is when the penalty is called on Bradbury.
Sure, but it doesn't diminish the legacy of Mahomes and what he's done, because, you were here for hours before this game starts, and there's just a laundry list of plays that we grew up watching, like the Elway helicopter spin, Joe Montana's drive against the Bengals. This will be played for decades and eons down the road. This is like the play that sort of, to me, signifies and defines what Mahomes is.
And the fact that he was caught from behind shows the difference of injured Mahomes and not.
Yeah.
I don't know what Kazir White, their linebacker, was doing on that play. He ends up making the tackle, but I think he'd like to have that play back. And it's just such a insane sport that, like, that little holding call, which, by the way, James Bradbury, after the game, admitted he tugged the jersey. It was a hold. It was, quote, "It was a holding. I tugged his jersey. I was hoping they would let it slide."
Oh, thank God. You know what? Actually, as I'm loyal to football as well. On some level, not as loyal as Greg could ever be, because the only integrity only goes so far. But it's cool to hear him say that. They just showed the replay. We just saw it on the TV behind Gravedigger. And it was ticky-tack. I understand where Eagles fans are going to have a certain opinion on it. Obviously, you have the Olsen, who has the biggest voice of anyone, being the color guy in the Super Bowl, basically saying the flag should have stayed in the pocket. But the actual defender saying, yes, it was I tried to get away with it and didn't. That, I think, maybe if I'm an Eagles fan, that I get a little bit of grace out of that, just a tiny bit.
I think it's noble that he said that, and he's owning the mistake, because, yes, I think if you go look at it on its own, but for me, it's just that the tone of the game, those calls were not being made.
They weren't all game.
Josh Sweat got a hit on Mahomes on that play. It was so rare. And I think when the Eagles look back on this game, they will question what Jonathan Gannon did. We talked about whether Jonathan Gannon deserved the heat he was getting in Philadelphia all season or not, as security police are trying to.
That almost just looked like
it's still happening. I'm trying to keep it
that looked like a police officer from a movie. It didn't look like an actual police officer.
We have to wrap it up soon. The police are unhappy with us, apparently.
This
is like when we got pulled over on that yacht in Miami.
Only way worse.
Right.
For the Eagles defense never really had answers, and we saw the secondary having breakdowns in communication throughout the second half, where they're kind of yelling at each other and not being able to figure out what to do. They never really figured out how to stop the Chiefs' short passing game.
Let's hear from a nice, Travis Kelce, who didn't have the biggest game, but again, there weren't a ton of reps to be had in this game. But he did make big plays, including that touchdown, and he's always a star with a mic. This is what he said after the game, immediately on the field.
Man, one of y'all said the Chiefs were going to take it home this year. Not a single one. Feel it. And on top of that, next time the Chiefs say something, put some respect on our name.
You both told me, going into this year, you heard what people were saying. They're rebuilding. Tyreek is gone. there's a new quarterback in the AFC, couple new quarterbacks. You win the MVP, and now you win their second Super Bowl.
MV Pat, you can't say enough about what this guy means to Kansas City and this team.
What does it mean to you?
And I mean, it's just, I told y'all before the season, we got Coach Andy Reid, we got guys like Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, Frank Clark. We're going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. At the end of the day, we're going to be the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to celebrate this right here, baby.
Unbelievable. It's in terms of like legacy and what the game means when you look at where Mahomes stacks up. It is the Chiefs' second Super Bowl victory in their last 4 seasons. They also won in 2019. They lost in 2020 to the Bucs. They've made it to at least the AFC title in all 5 seasons since Mahomes became the primary starter in 2018. And look out, Mark, for Andy Reid here, because he joins Belichick, Shula, Landry as the only head coaches in NFL history with over 200 wins and multiple Super Bowl wins. He's in the conversation now as the greatest coach of all time. He's there.
100%. I mean, and it's fitting that it came against the team that at one point in his career thought, we're kind of done with Andy Reid. It's been nice. You didn't get us to the Super Bowl title in that situation, and look where he is now. I mean, he is one of the best.
It's crazy because I think his run in Philadelphia was as influential as like any offensive coach had over the rest of the NFL, any run over the last 20 years. Like you see so many teams that do what Andy Reid does. So between his influence and now these championships, like you put him on those lists of different people. Like, yeah, he's there with the Tom Landrys. Like he's gonna be there. I think close to the Don Shulas in terms of all these wins.
And I
that
think
he's
at
getting.
a time in football where it's harder to keep doing what the Chiefs are doing year after year.
All right, so we're running out of time here, so we got to wrap things up. But I just want to, real quick, let's go through the sandwich props. Mark, you had the Eagles will run the Philly special.
Well, maybe they should have.
There were a couple of moments where it felt like it could be run, but you did not get those.
There was a moment we thought the Chiefs might do it too. I did not
potentially.
get the thank you for the sound drop.
Greggy, the Rainmaker came out one more time. We talked about it as an important legacy pick for the Rainmaker. You had Isaiah Pacheco, over 47.5 yards rushing. He had close to 70, I believe.
78, I think. I looked
80.
up at the sky when Pacheco had that late third quarter run and the rain was coming down.
American Cash coming down.
People were just sending me on Twitter just like celebration.
You know who was celebrating? 70% of the people in the stadium, because this place was loaded with Birds fans. And then the old Zeuser, I did go out on a limb. Yes, I said the Chiefs would waltz to a blowout win. Well, they got a win, but I also said Patrick Mahomes would not get sacked in this game against an Eagles pass rush that had 78 sacks coming into this game, and that is a credit to that offense.
That's a Dan Hanzus shout
Thank you, Paul Rudd, and congratulations on your title. Paul Rudd, they're coming into the doors. Paul Rudd, congratulations to you, my friend. But great job by the offensive line, and it's just the mastery of Mahomes.
And the mastery of your sandwich props. So that might have been your best one yet.
I mean, there's people all over this stadium right now. They're still taking pictures. There's all over, but we are.
It's good for you, Greg, to get into it with the police.
I'm just saying we're getting.
And just know, Greggy, that this dominant performance by me puts me into the all-time lead in terms of the standings. So that's something you're going to have to deal with. And I say before we go and get arrested, that'd be kind of cool to be arrested on Super Bowl Sunday.
For podcasts.
So. There'd be something punk rock.
Then we'd all be the bad boys of the NFL.
And I hope the authorities are okay with this. But I want to thank everybody that made this week happen for around the NFL. The podcast is in such a great place, and then part of it is because it's in great hands. So thank you to Kleinman, who's about to get hit by a
baton,
baton for us. Justin Gravedigger, of course, our amazing producer. Sean and Jason, the people at iHeart, who gave us an amazing set at Radio Row. Zach Saley, who's a boss behind the scenes. He's here helping us out. The whole crew back in Inglewood. Drew, Christy. Who's the girl that didn't go to our party, our live show?
Rude.
No, I'm just saying, like, she should have been there.
She should have.
She should have. But
Parker, of course.
Fatal mistake.
You just didn't want to name her.
I kid. Parker and the whole crew there, thank you for all your help. Sean Kelly, of course.
Wait a minute. I would thank us, though, the three of us.
Yeah, well, ultimately,
what's happening if we're not here?
I think we're key figures. We're key figures.
They're really getting edgy behind the scenes. We will have a story to tell. And one image that'll stick with me, too, is just is Jason Kelsey staying on the field forever. He stayed on the field forever with his brother, hugging and stood on the side taking pictures, and it felt like a goodbye. It felt like a very emotional goodbye.
Yes, and most of all, thank you to you, the listener. This is our 10th Super Bowl in the stadium, 11 overall, and the fact that we're able to do this for a living, you give us a great life, and we cannot thank you enough. We're going to take the rest of the week off for the podcast. Thank you to everybody for listening, and until then, next week, I should say, this is Dan Hanzus signing off.
Oh, no. Ow!
For
Greg's been taken out.
Put those handcuffs away! Ow.
The Quiet Storm, the Gravedigger, and everybody else. Thank you for another great season. Heed the call. Run, 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 run.